We're about to show you some very graphic and disturbing images from the fallout of a suspected chemical weapons attack in Syria. The country has been in the grips of civil war for 6 years now, and tonight we'll also take you inside ISIS-controlled territory to meet the innocent families caught in the middle of the chaos. Here's my Nightline co-anchor, Dan Harris.
These are the frantic and horrifying scenes from a suspected sarin gas attack in northern Syria today. In a conflict that is increasingly challenging for reporters to cover, these graphic images posted online by activists and people who live in the area show victims, many of them children, struggling to breathe. Desperate first responders rush in, ripping off clothes and spraying survivors with water. As many as 58 people dead, and some claim the toll could rise above 100. Scattered in the mud, the bodies of lifeless children suspected of being poisoned in a chemical attack allegedly orchestrated by their own government.
A situation we cannot describe by words. Really, it is very sad.
Dr. Mizar Hassani treated patients in a hospital about 30 miles from the reported attack.
These children, when we arrived, they have been point by point, drowsiness, agitated.
And this was not the end of the violence today. 2 hours after that first attack, an alleged second regime airstrike ripped through a medical clinic where activists were documenting the aftermath. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's reported use of chemical weapons against his own people is being called a crime against humanity and is drawing international condemnation.
There's no excuse whatsoever for the deliberate attack on civilians and on children.
There can be no future for Assad in a stable Syria, which is representative of all the Syrian people.
President Trump did not address the attack during a speech this afternoon. The White House did issue a statement condemning the attack, but also placing blame on President Trump's predecessor, President Obama, saying these heinous acts by the Bashar al-Assad regime are a consequence of the past administration's weakness and irresolution.
There are really no easy options here, and so rather than face a really complex and hard question, it's easier to just point the finger in another direction and maybe buy yourself some time to try to figure it out.
We have all seen the reports of the terrible chemical weapons attack in Syria.
Nikki Haley, U.S. ambassador to the UN, is now calling for an emergency meeting to discuss the attack, which is being described as among the worst in a civil war that has been raging in Syria for more than 7 years. The Syrian death count has now climbed to nearly 500,000 since the war began. And the conflict has fueled the largest wave of refugees since World War II.
Everybody is very nervous.
I was on the ground to witness the flood of humanity.
This is the front lines of it.
The chaos and carnage in Syria compelling so many families to leave their lives behind, and also making perilous ocean crossings in overloaded boats. This is just an incredible scene. These people, families, have just risked their lives to cross this narrow strait, all in the search for a better future. Are you nervous about approaching the Hungary border?
Of course, all of us. Because this is a point we don't know how we're going to deal with it.
And for the Syrians left behind, it's a life of constant danger and uncertainty, stuck between the forces of Bashar al-Assad and ISIS. It is, for many, nothing short of hell on earth, the title of a soon-to-be-released documentary directed by Sebastian Junger. A sweeping picture of Syria's descent into chaos, the film also tells the intimate story of one Syrian family, brothers Radwan and Marwan, who documented their own daily experience living in Syria. Their days marked by constant reminders of how ISIS deals with dissent.
وشفنا راسين زلم معلقينهم على الدوارات.
اليوم؟
أيوة.
Their nights spent huddled inside, soothing their young children as bombs fall all around them.
وين عم بضرب حاليا مع حدا.
لا تخافي بابا، لا تخافي، لا تخافي، لا تخافي.
وما بحسن أعبر عن شعوري الداخلي. بدي أضحك غصبا عني عشان هالأطفال هي ما تخاف أو تتلبك.
Junger, an award-winning journalist, author, and filmmaker, is no stranger to conflict. His documentary, Restrepo, about a remote U.S. outpost in Afghanistan, was nominated for an Oscar and won an Emmy.
Why did you want to tell this story next?
I and my colleague, Nick Quested, felt that there was a real sort of misunderstanding in America of why the war started, why ISIS came to be in the sort of chaos of this war, but primarily a real misunderstanding about refugees. But the truth is, they're really desperate people. They're acting in ways that any one of us, any viewer would act in those circumstances.
In this new film, we see Marwan and his family living under the constant threat of being tortured or killed.
فكان قطع الروس هو الحالة المخيفة اللي ما بتخلي حدا انه يحسن يحكي شيء، لانه مجرد بجوز تحكي شيء تعلق على الساحة 3-4 ايام انت معلق، بجوز حدا يحكي له كلمة ينقطع راسه.
No longer able to endure the daily fear, we watch as the family decides that it's time to try to leave.
يا شتينا هدول حتى على حدود ما يقدروا يمشون وحل وتراب
بلكي انه الله ييسر امري واحسن اطلع، لانه الوضع هون صار جحيم جحيم جدا جدا. يعني العيشه ضمن الارض الدوله الاسلاميه مستحيله.
Eventually, they start their harrowing journey, hiding in the back of a truck, making their way through ISIS territory, desolate checkpoints dotting the highway.
We both have young children. Can you imagine putting your entire family in the back of a metal truck driving over a border where if you get caught, you're all going to get shot?
I just became a parent. I've been in situations where I thought I was going to be killed, and it affects you for years. I can't imagine being in a situation where you think that might happen to your child.
لما وصلت سيارة عند الحاجز أنا يعني بحالة رعب، هي مرتي صارت ترجف، صرت أقرأ آيات قرآنية أدعي.
They arrive in Turkey hoping for a new life.
لما طلعنا الهلاهل والفرحة لا توصف. صدقني ولدت من جديد.
But they want to go even further. They want to try to reach European countries like Germany. They secure passage on a boat headed for Greece. But before they land, they're intercepted by authorities and returned to Turkey. The goal of getting to a country like Germany, long a holy grail, has now become increasingly tenuous. Anti-refugee sentiment has grown across Europe and even here in the U.S.
No Paris in America!
President Trump signing those controversial executive orders to put a hold on refugees from Syria, citing concerns about terrorism.
As an American, I can absolutely say, like, we would be lucky to have those two people in our country. We'd be absolutely lucky to have them. They're brave, dignified, beautiful people. And I think the Trump administration is trying to sort out who actually is a threat. And when they target refugees, I think they're actually getting it wrong. If we live in a world where every Western country is so worried about some potential threat from refugees that they don't actually help these people, we're all going to hell.
What do you mean by that, going to hell?
Morally, that's a barbaric world that I don't think anyone really wants to live in.
The world we live in right now seems frankly paralyzed in the face of the hell in Syria, leaving no good options for families like these who have to choose between the purgatory of Turkey, the political tensions of the West, or the peril of Syria, where yet again today the government stands accused of gassing its own people. For Nightline, this is Dan Harris in New York.
Our thanks to Dan. Hell on Earth, The Fall of Syria and the Rise of ISIS will premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival and air later this spring on National Geographic.